Welcome! Hello there, I am James. Welcome to my Detailing Yoda channel, where I put my 11 years in the detailing industry out there for you guys to either increase your skills, or if you have a detailing business or you're thinking about starting a detailing business, give you some hints and tips and hopefully all you'll need to be successful in that business and allow you to live your dreams through detailing, which like I have. I feel super grateful for the career I've had in detailing. And I want the same for you guys. So, I truly am living my dreams through detailing. I'm a car guy, I love cars. I want you guys to do the same, and that's why I've started this channel. So in this video, we're gonna go for a really quite geeky deep dive. So this is the top of a deep dive into machine polishing and the machine polishing cycle. Now, what you'll notice is magically lots of stuff has appeared on there. That is because my camera shut off after my introduction. So I did draw it all and go on for 5 minutes talking to you, but you weren't listening. So there we go. So what I'll do is run through that now. So what this is part one of 2 parts of a real deep dive, a real deep geeky dive into what happens really when you've pulled the trigger on your machine polisher and what is happening all the way until you release the trigger on your machine polisher. There's a lot going on, and when you think about it, it governs everything to do with polishing, from what pad type you're using to what machine type you're using to helping you problem solve with any issues you've got. So if you're not cutting deep enough, or you're getting a weird finish, or you're not getting the sharp finish that you want, it's normally the reason is based on this graph somewhere. So it looks super crazy now, probably with you just reading it, but stay with me and I'll run through it and how it can help you with your machine polishing, improve your productivity and help problem solve for you. So I'm just going to dive straight into it. So what we've got here is really a 0. On this axis, we've got 0 to 100% of quite a few variables. What we've got along the bottom here is time, so the amount of time the trigger is pulled. So this is when the instant you pull that trigger, and up here, off the end, is whenever in time you release that trigger. I'm just going to check you're still recording, because I have a bad... You are, fantastic. So the first thing I like to draw on this that is really relatively easy to understand is this temperature line here. So this temperature line here. So starting at 0, obviously the temperature is at ambient. So if we said that was 0, as you pull the trigger, obviously the longer you keep the trigger pulled, the more temperature we've got. What happens after a while is it does eventually level off. Eventually, we get to kind of a point where it doesn't rise a lot more anymore. But certainly initially, the longer you keep the trigger pulled, the longer we polish for, the more the temperature increases. So that's the first concept, fairly easily understood concept with this that I'd like to get across. I should mention, by the way, this is not all my own work. Jason Rose originally presented this to me about 18 months ago. It's something that's been whistling around in my head, and if you've been on one of my training courses in the last year or so, it's something that I've been introducing a lot more on those courses. So hopefully you got something out of it on the course. Maybe this is a bit of a reminder for you. The second concept I like to introduce is this lubrication concept. So when we put our polish onto our pad, what is in that polish? Well, there's 2 principal components, aren't there? There is an abrasive of some sort, whether that is diminishing or non-diminishing or whatever it is, and there is a liquid. That liquid is actually 2 different types of liquid. It is some form of oil, so they're never oil-free, despite what they say on the tin. There is always a sort of oil in there, and there's also water in there. So really there's 2 parts to that compound. And what happens is when we're at 0, when we pull the trigger, obviously that is at 100% because it's just come out of the bottle. As we go through our polishing cycle, the amount of lubrication that is provided reduces. Why is that? Well, some of it evaporates, doesn't it? Some of the water evaporates. And our next sort of thing that we talk about, so residue, we're getting, what is polishing? It's introducing residue, or we're removing paint. That goes into the compound, and that is also absorbed by the compound. So eventually that will dry it out. And as you know, if you've machine polished and you've gone on quite a long time, weird things can happen. The machine can jump around, it can go dusty, you can get these balls that clog up. All of that is a symptom of this lubrication reducing and the polish breaking back down into its component parts. So the other thing I like to draw on this graph is what are these dotted lines, which is the amount of residue. So this is something I mentioned a minute ago. Really, what are we doing when we're polishing? Well, we're removing paint. If you've been on my courses again, you'll know that one of the things I ask you is, what are we doing? What is this new thing, this foreign object that happens, that comes into the mixture that we polish with while we are polishing? And it's residue, it's paint. When we polish out a scratch, we're not removing the scratch, we're just lowering the level of the paint around the scratch so the scratch is no longer visible. So, we're taking off paint. Detailing is a completely destructive, machine polishing is a completely destructive process. We're always taking away from the paint that is on the vehicle. So to that end, we are introducing residue. And obviously the longer we go on in time, the more residue we remove. Now, what that means is, and this is the final concept I want to launch with this process, what this means is there is an optimum point where our finish is the best. Believe it or not. So as detailers, I am just as guilty of this as the next guy. You just want to keep that trigger pulled, don't you? When you've got the polisher on and you're polishing away, maybe you've got your headphones on, you just want to keep polishing because, it's sort of, in our minds, it feels obvious that the longer I keep the trigger pulled, the shinier the car is going to be, the more defects I'm going to remove. Well, unfortunately, if you really, really think about it, it's not the case. There is an optimum time, which is here in the middle of the graph, where we start out here, and as we polish, our finish gets better and better because we're removing more and more defects. However, as we come up here, the lubrication is reducing, the residue is increasing, and because of those two things, our temperature is also increasing. Obviously, as the temperature increases, we lose lubrication because water evaporates. So we get into this vicious spiral. So as we come up here, we get to this ultimate sort of zenith point, or a point where our finish is the best it's going to be. And after that, the finish gets worse. So if you're polishing with a DA, that's when haze will start to occur. That's when maybe the machine will start jumping around if you're on a rotary. The finish will get worse. It will be less sharp. You'll be maybe introducing machine defects. And that's because after that point, we've got less and less lubrication. We've got more and more residue. Nothing good ever happens once you carry on to this side of this chart, because you've only ever got more residue and less lubrication. So nothing good is ever going to happen when those two things are combined. So think about this. There's a central point there where we're at our optimum. If you are familiar with the Ruper's recommended way of polishing, their cycle is geared at 45 seconds to a minute. That one set of left and rights, one set of up and downs should take around about 45 seconds to a minute. And the reason for that is if you go beyond that, the finish goes downhill. You're much better stopping, polishing off the residue, and then starting again, rather than going on and on and on. Because by pulling that trigger, things aren't going to get any better, actually. Hopefully that's the concept that you can take on board, because it's quite a deep one and it goes against what you would naturally think was happening while you were polishing. So the final thing I want to launch on here is just this short and long, which is to do with, what we would call cycle time. So this is the sort of optimum time. If you go on below that, you are long cycling or extended cycling. And if you're below that, you are what we would call short cycling the products. Now, whether you are using a diminishing abrasive or a non-diminishing abrasive, all of the Rupes abrasives, for example, are non-diminishing, so the size of the abrasive particles never changes. Lots of other compounds, for example, the geeky compounds, are all diminishing abrasives. So how you use this curve and how you use the polishing cycle will depend on the abrasive type you have. This time will change depending on the machine type. Obviously, the more aggressive it is, the faster we're going to move to the right-hand side of the graph. The less aggressive that polisher movement, so a DA, the longer we'll take to get there. So this really affects many things. And in part 2, that's what I want to talk about more. How this will then dictate how maybe you're dealing with defects, what polisher you pick up, what compound you pick up, what pad you pick up, because this really dictates everything, and how you can use it for a bit of problem solving. So by all means, click on that and go along to part 2 if you're interested in that. Maybe also check out some other videos on the channel. There are the basics of Rupes on there, and there's some more advanced stuff for you guys on there. So kind of, once we taught you the rules, we teach you to break the rules. So have a look through all of those videos, and I'll see you again on the next video on my little Detailing Yoda channel here. By the way, if you've got value from this, if you've enjoyed it, if you've learned something, if you could click the subscribe button, click the like button, and also give us a comment, that would be fantastic. It really helps me and the channel grow, helps the video go to more people. YouTube can see that people are enjoying the video and they're getting value from it, and it helps spread the word and it helps me. So thank you very much, guys, and check out the part 2 of this video. Thank you.